All right. Um, if you're just joining, welcome to a density webinar. We like to do these rather often. This one's going to be product focused. We're probably going to see a few people trickle in kind of over the next few minutes, but I think we're going to get started regardless. Rob, if you don't mind jumping in.
What's up?
All right. My name is Andrew Farah. I'm co-founder and CEO of Density. This is Robert Grazioli, one of my co-founders and leads product. And we thought that we would take you through what we consider to be the future of open space measurement with our newest product called Open Area. So I'm going to let Rob present and kind of walk through some stuff, and then we're going to do some live demos.
Yeah, emphasis on live demos. I think that's something that really like to tout. So we'll make this quick, but we're here to talk about Open Area. It's this beautiful little thing here. It's about the size of a BLT, we like to say, and it's a completely anonymous open area sensor. So it mounts to the ceiling, and really the objective is to see what's going on within a space. And we're going to talk about how that's particularly relevant, probably more than ever. So I think most people are gearing up for some kind of migration. Obviously, there's like a mass exodus from the office space over the past couple of months, and what we're seeing now is our customers trying to get back, and we're trying to deliver a product to help them do that, but help them do it well. And I think well is probably the most important thing. Like, people can do this and have done this in the past, but they've done it with badge data, which is typically inaccurate because it's usually one way. If you want it to be two-way, well, then you're making people badge twice, and that's just annoying and also inaccurate. Wi-Fi data, also inaccurate, but maybe more importantly, imprecise. And I'll touch on that a little bit in greater detail. And then you have zone-based cameras. These are cameras which you put above desk areas, in particular, bookable desk areas now. So you have personally identifiable information there. It's invasive, and it's also restricted to that zone-based style of measuring usage. And then, of course, observational studies, just kind of the old school way of having someone walk around in the office and capture data for 2 weeks. So that's kind of how it used to be. And the best outcome there would look like this, which like used to look so cool. It's like, okay, there are colors on here. I kind of know where people are spending time. I don't really know what all the colors mean, but it looks interesting. So it must be nice. And I think the reality is, when you really try to use this data set, all you're getting is this ambiguous sense of where people are spending time, and not a precise sense of what resources people are using and really how they're moving throughout the office. So what Andrew and I are going to do is really go through our product and our software and demonstrate how it works, and then how we think we're just kind of completely changing the way people go about this. And primarily, we do that with both of our sensors, which I think is always important to call out. Our entry-based product is installed at the perimeter of a space, and it is really good at producing a super accurate wide area count, and delivering real-time entrance and exit-based analytics. So we think when you combine the two, you get this really complete data set. And I think more importantly, because it's real-time and so easy to install, it's going to help our customers iterate quickly. So I'm going to pass it back over to Andrew. He's going to talk a little bit about how the data works, and yeah, show you what it looks like. So time for the fun part. You ready, Andrew?
Cool. Yeah.
Cool.
All right. So let me share my screen. All right, can you see my screen?
Yeah, gotcha.
All right, and do you see sort of like Q&A here over on the right too, or is it just the Open Area sensor screen?
It's just the OA screen, and we see your tabs on the right, and we see your mouse.
Cool. Okay. So this is our Open Area sensor. I just really like this graphic because it's like fun to see exploding devices. Of course, Rob probably thinks it's ridiculous, but it's like one of my favorite things.
Oh, no. Awesome.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to show you what this device sees instead of doing a CAN demo. So let me jump in here. All right. So All right, so what you're looking at, maybe before I kind of let this go on, what you're looking at is sort of an important note here, which is that um, uh, this view, this camera right here, is not our sensor. This camera is looking into a space for ground truth to give us a sense of what our sensor is seeing. What our sensor is seeing is below it. And so you can see it's actually an aerially deployed device, and then it's measuring space below. Now the perspectives are roughly the same. They're both looking in sort of the same direction, at least in this view. But the thing that's really cool is that instead of an X and Y sort of flat view or perspective, density open area is actually capable of seeing or generating all of this anonymous depth data in 3 dimensions, which is not only like the matrix and like super fun to play with, but is also substantially better at generating accurate outcomes. If you have a 2-dimensional image, then you're really limited by that sort of X and Y in this case. And also, camera-based systems are invasive, but there's a reason why there's a lot of false positives and higher error rates, and that's because you just don't have a lot of granular data. So this is actual data. You can see the 2 different colors distinguishing 2 different people. And then the really cool thing is that our field of view is really pretty substantial. So a single device can see quite a large space, and then that grows pretty substantially as you go up. And then of course, my favorite thing about this is without this ground truth video, I'd have no idea who these 2 people are. We wouldn't know age, gender, or ethnicity. And we think that's cool. And so essentially it's better tech, more accurate tech without the cost of privacy. So let me, so we thought, all right, this is cool. Why don't we just sorry, go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, well, like one thing to call out is I always feel like those dots just look like kind of data vomit. But obviously we have a algorithm that runs on the device and is sort of making sense of that data set that allows us to interpret it more simply. So
That's
just,
right.
that looks like maybe it's sparse, but computers are much better at at this stuff than we are. So we use their help.
Yeah. The other thing to call out too is like it doesn't see plants. So you see the plants on the left, like you're not seeing any dots showing up with the plants. You're not seeing any sort of strange dots with like the objects that are around here. Like these dots are not showing up for the table. And that's because this device is essentially tuned to pick up on very small motion and then create sort of these contiguous depth sets that we can use to like figure out a human signature without necessarily identifying who that person is. All right, so let me move on to some, so this is cool. It's like, okay, cool. Why don't we put this on a floor plan? So, so that's what we did. We just decided to put this on a floor plan. Now what you're gonna see is what our device is actually, this is an actual human on an actual floor plan, wandering around an actual space. This, as far as we know, has not been possible before. But the coolest thing about this, just for like demonstration purposes, is it's all in 3 dimensions. And so if you play like Minecraft or, if you're into sort of like gaming of any kind, like this is just like super sweet. Now it's a little bit less practical. You're not necessarily going to stare at folks wandering around in circles all day on a floor plan, but functionally speaking, this is where the future of space design is going. It's just a question of like, how do you take sort of it from this proof of concept into an actual application? So we thought, all right, enough of the demos. Let's just go into an actual application. So this is a live application. It's actually sort of in use as a real space. And the thing that's really cool is that this tool allows us, I'm going to show you a couple things. I'm going to show you what this tool can do, and then I'm going to show you what our sensors see in like real terms. Okay, so the cool thing about this tool is that we can literally just drop in open area devices, and we can maybe duplicate. We'll say, we want to look at this sort of like workstation set here, and sort of these workbenches over here. We want to cover this section here. And also the ceiling height in this area is actually quite a bit larger. So, of course, the higher the sensor is deployed, the more that it can see. And, just to give you a sense of what tall is, most people don't really realize what 20 feet looks like. But like you go up to 20 feet and this thing is like huge field of view. Now, most ceilings are not 20 feet, so we'll keep it a bit more modest. But the point is that this allows us to do essentially scoping and implementation for both open area and for entry. So if you're familiar with our entry product, this allows us to create a little doorway there, and then to even play with whichever direction the door might be pointing. Okay, enough of that. So you've got these devices installed. Now what? The question is, well, I want to measure like this particular space, and what is this space? So we've got two ways of figuring out utilization of an asset or a physical thing. Number one is manual, and manual is kind of cool. You can say, I just want to sort of drop a circle in here. I want to measure just this entire area. Now, what you're looking at may look a little bit confusing, but this blue circle is the field of view of the device. This purple circle is marketing. It's like a desk marketing workstations. I don't know. I'm always bad at naming workstations. Okay, workstation 12. So what's cool is that, all right, nailed it. So this is now an asset that when a person walks through, if you remember sort of this stuff, into this space, it will tell us how often that space is used. So everything from touchdowns to dwell time to how many different space types you're kind of bouncing around. And then also the really cool thing, and we're not going to get into this in any super detail, but you can actually do spaces inside spaces. So let's say I wanted to measure like one or several of these little desks or seats. I can actually put a space inside of a space and call that a desk. Anyway, I'm gonna bump out of this. Let me zoom out. Okay, this is an actual deployment. We were talking to a customer. We were having a conversation with a customer. We're live with them, and we pulled up this floor plan. And as we pulled up this floor plan, something really magical happened. It turns out there were people inside the space. So I'm going to show you this. We sort of recorded it so that we were able to talk about it a bit more. But I'm going to show you this actual space. Just sort of like remember this kind of layout. Let me just jump over here. All right, cool. So this is that sort of like a pattern that you'd seen right here. And then this is sort of the room down at the bottom right. You can see these purple squares. Let me just kind of hit play here. All right, so we're talking to this customer, and live a human walks into this office. And you can see this person sort of moving between different space types. It turns out that I can't remember if it was in this space or another one, Rob, but one of these spaces was one of these things was a printer, and someone just kept showing up to the printer. And we didn't know it was a printer, and they're like, oh, that's the printer, that's the printer. They're going to the printer, which was just this really cool moment.
Yeah, it wasn't this one. It was a different space, and it wasn't a printer. It was actually an IT service desk. But my hypothesis was a printer.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the really cool thing here is that, like, not only can we see this human here, but if you keep watching and look over here to the left, I don't know if you've ever gone fishing, but you can like turn on the ultrasound thing, and a fish will like show up. That's an actual human moving through space that is now measured, moving on a floor plan that is now measured. I can't remember who I was talking. Rob and I were talking most likely, and we realized like this is a real-time, real-life Marauders map from like Harry Potter, and we are extremely excited to bring to you the Marauders map from Harry Potter. The only difference between that and Density is that we don't have a little name that says Dumbledore, next to the feet that are walking past. And I think that's a very important piece, is that the Marauders map was actually very invasive of privacy, whereas Density protects or preserves privacy. But this was very exciting, and I think
I really hope this webinar isn't followed up with a cease and desist from
Universal. Right? Yeah, exactly. We're gonna get sued, but hey, whatever. Such is life. So the thing that is really cool to call out right here is that this movement that you see going through, that allows us to do pathing. It allows us to, over time, stitch together lots of visitation, lots of movement, and tell you where people are moving most consistently, and maybe even more importantly, where they're not going. And so I'm actually going to kick it back to Rob to talk about what this means when you're doing analysis at a larger scale over a much larger time horizon.
Really, really quickly, Andrew, just to touch on when people were in those boundaries that Andrew defined, in that case, a square, you saw how those lit up. That's how we're storing occupancy on the back end as well. So we have an algorithm running that's looking for activity within those bounds, and then tracking how long those particular spaces were occupied as well. And then so we store that, and then it's all available through our analytics platform in our backend. So just to clarify, like how that's all interconnected, I think is
Well, but to add to this point, the other thing that's so important is that this becomes a digital asset, this circle, and it's a refrigerator, and you can start to say, like, how often are people going to the beer fridge? Not that that's like the objective, but like the point is that this now becomes a thing that we can track against as a
Exactly.
or report against over the long term.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So more demos, because we love demos. So this is our office in Syracuse. This is purely for demonstration, and it helps explain what I'm about to show you next. So this is our factory team. They're amazing. They build. So our products are all built in the U.S. and manufactured in the U.S. So this is our team in Syracuse, and they help us out here. They're going to slowly walk into the scene here and fill up these 5 desks. Also notice RJ is kind of leaning back and sort of reclining. I always find that really interesting. So they're going to fill up these 5 desks. So then what we're able to do is take that real-time data set and play it back. So this is that same data set played back. So basically you can see how as people walk in, we're sort of filling in their path, and you can see that path of travel, and then where they're spending the most time is where more data is accumulating, and then we crank up the temperature on those particular data points. And the reason why I call out RJ is because you can actually see him leaning back here, so you see he has more of an elongated stance, and that's how precise our sensor is. So there's no more than a few feet in between these people, and we're picking that up. And why is that important? Because this is the reality of how space is used. So if we go back and compare that to the antiquated way in which we measure space, good luck trying to tell me if people are sitting in this at this reception area, or if they're spending time on this couch. It's simply not possible until now. This is the first time people can actually do that, and we think it's significant, especially given the state of the world at the moment.
Two quick things I want to call out. I love how combative good luck is, Rob. Good luck pulling any value out of this. But the second thing is that the floor plan, Rob, if you could show the floor plan before with the heat map, the old heat map.
Sure.
The way that this is derived today is often by space studies, consultants who come in and will observe behavior and then write down which rooms get used or in use, or how long they've been in use. And that then boils up to these visualizations. So a lot of what we're talking about is essentially an abstraction of human observation. Sometimes technology is used, like MAC address tracking, picking up on phones, sometimes cameras, sometimes beacons and stuff. But by and large, the state of the art today is spending $1 million to observe 3 buildings once a quarter with a 5-person team that walks through for a few days and takes notes on human behavior. Density's open area system, and density more broadly, is going to be it's like 1/100th the cost and 100x the value and precision. And so this view that Rob is showing you here is fully autonomous. I mean, the beautiful thing about this is it just happens. You just let people visit your space, come back to office safely, and they will vote with their feet. And you can see in real time or over any time period, any interval, where you might want to be spending more time or making changes.
Yeah, the voting with your feet concept is always a trip for me. I remember, 5 years ago, that was kind of our thing, and I feel like we finally kind of gotten there. You really can see where people like to be, or at least have to be and are. Cool. So that's the wrap on demos. So
yeah, couple things to call out. There were a few questions. Rob, you can actually drop the screen. Just a few important things. Coverage. Rob, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think device can be up to a little north of 1,300 square feet of space.
Yeah, well, I mean, at 20 feet, it's 2,100 square feet, but that's kind of a rarity. So yeah, we advertise around 1,300 because that's actually practical based on what we've been seeing for installs. So the theoretical max is massive, but yeah.
But if you have high ceilings, like 2,000 square, you can do a whole apartment. You know what I mean? Another question is around dwell time. We can measure dwell time. So like how much time is spent in a particular asset, how much time is spent in a particular area on a floor plan. We can even then roll that up into analytics that look more traditional BI like business intelligence, as opposed to just a floor plate or floor plan. What is important to know is that we don't know who the person is. And so while we can do dwell time, we can't do dwell time for, say, an individual. It's dwell time for an anonymous human. One of the other things is like, there's a question about field of view controlled. So the field of view is easily manageable inside that tool that we just showed. It's all in software, so you can increase or decrease that field of view up until the maximum of the height that it's installed, where you sort of have the physical limitations of the device. But it's all software, so it's very easy to kind of constrain that artificially or through an application.
And just to add on that, that's true for configuration across the board with Density. So our latest sort of release of sensor management, you don't have to be on site at all to really manage manage where your space locations are and what a sensor should actually focus on. All that can be done through software, which we felt was really important kind of coming into back to office, as like, I just know Density is going to have a plan, and that plan's going to change very quickly after everyone's back. We're just going to be wrong, and we're software people, so we like to move quickly, and we want to try to facilitate a more agile work environment.
Yeah, there's another sort of important question around like shifting desks, and as you sort of make changes, like a lot of organizations are pulling seats out of conference rooms to limit the capacity inside conference rooms as they return. A lot of people are sort of like creating space in between desks so that there's sufficient distance for folks, even in we sort of refer to it as like a semi-vaccinated world. And how can you remain safe despite the fact that you're sort of in kind of this limbo? One of the very important points about this technology is that there really are two ways to think about figuring out how people use space. There is manually creating the asset and then people visit it. That's sort of the tried and true method of, the last 40, 50 years as we think about floor plan design. We're gonna put a couch here and then we're gonna have to update that floor plan depending on where we decide to move that couch. That's hard to keep track of. The other way that we think is actually really promising is actually to just let people visit wherever they're gonna go. And then Density will surface for you how they're using that space. It is extremely clear if a workstation is in use, as evidenced by Rob's presentation of sort of that heat map. It's extremely clear when it's a desk as opposed to sort of a social area, a gathering space. And so we think as you're scaling, there are ways to avoid some of the really arduous tasks of manually creating spaces and instead just let people vote with their feet. Another important point about file types that we support. So you can upload into the open area system any PDF or PNG or an image of some kind that's a floor plan. We suspect that in the very near future, we'll be able to support DWG files, or essentially layered files that come from AutoCAD or from your space planning team or your architects. It's particularly helpful in scoping, but it's also just really useful to keep like up-to-date files. We have just a couple more minutes, and then I think we're gonna wrap. And my 4.5-month-old might be waking up from a nap, so you may hear her in just a moment.
Andrew, I see a question just about the dashboard or analytics and reports.
Sure.
Maybe I can just really quickly show what our reporting dashboard looks like at present. And we have some really cool updates coming out that I think we'll be presenting on another series soon, so look out for that. But this is our dashboard. So this is where we show all of our live data and sort of enable all of our really comprehensive reporting tools. So this is just kind of like your command center here where you have a hierarchical view of all your spaces. You can see events coming in real time. So blues are entrances, grays are exits, and all this is coming from our entry sensor within less than a second. And you can just get a really quick view of like foot traffic over the course of any single day. We then have a more robust analytics tool. This allows you to customize reports and sort of get more in depth with that particular data set. You can then export this data to CSV and import that into your own workflow, or obviously include some of this into presentations. And then we have dashboards, which allows you to collect a series of reports and sort of present these as an actual summary. So we have a ton of different types of reports, and you can craft whatever presentation you're looking to really get across to either your executive teams or your workplace teams. We also have a newly released feature which is called Display. A lot of customers are installing these on floors and lobbies on the external or on the exterior of their space, and this exposes just the live availability or the live actual safety status of a given space. So they look like this. Basically, you get a shareable URL. You can put that on any display that runs a browser, and you'll get the status of the given floor. So all these have a capacity set. And in this example, these are all exceeding capacities. So we kind of show like a red do not enter. We also have a single space view that just has like a big screen. And if any questions about this, please reach out and we're happy to give you a more comprehensive demo.
All right, so I think we're coming to the end, I did not do this on purpose. This is a total surprise.
Oh my gosh.
Joe is wearing, this is Josephine, we call her Joey. She just woke up. She's wearing the Density onesie. So I had to bring her in.
Are we gonna cut this out or keep this in?
No, we're keeping this. Joe's gonna sign us off. We're gonna sign us off. So this will be kind of the end of the open area demo. We'll have Joe come back again. She's going to say goodbye. If you have any other questions or concerns or interests around the tech or the system, you can shoot a note to contact@density.io. You can also just visit density.io and find out a bit more. And of course, you can always reach out to Rob or I. It's just first name @density.io. Cool. I think this will be shared with everybody. If you haven't had a chance to attend, thanks so much for spending some time with us.
Thanks, guys. See you, Andrew.